Ancient roots in Celtic folklore. The legend of the Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie, traces its origins to ancient Scottish mythology. The Picts, an early Celtic tribe in Scotland, carved mysterious aquatic creatures into standing stones near Loch Ness around 1,500 years ago. These carvings, resembling serpents or long-necked beasts, suggest early beliefs in water spirits known as kelpies, shape-shifting entities said to haunt Scotland's lochs and rivers. Local folklore warned of these creatures dragging unsuspecting victims into the depths. The first recorded encounter, 565 CE. The earliest written account of a Nessie-like creature appears in a Domnan's Life of St. Columba, 7th century. It describes how the Irish monk Street Columba encountered a water beast in the River Ness in 565 CE. According to the tale, Columba intervened as the creature attacked a swimmer, invoking God's name to drive it away. While likely embellished, this story cemented the idea of a supernatural entity in the region's waters. The quiet centuries, medieval to 19th century. For centuries, Nessie remained a localized legend. Rare accounts included a 16th century chronicle describing a terrible dragon in Loch Ness and an 1871 newspaper note by D. Mackenzie, who saw a log-like object moving unnaturally. These reports were sporadic and lacked the sensationalism that would later define the myth. The modern myth begins, 1933. The legend exploded into global fame in 1933, after the completion of the A82 highway along Loch Ness's northern shore. On May 2, 1933, the Inverness Courier published a story titled "Strange Spectacle on Loch Ness." A couple claimed to see an enormous creature rolling in the water. The article coined the term Loch Ness Monster, sparking a media frenzy. By year's end, dozens of sightings were reported, including a motorcyclist who described a dinosaur-like beast crossing the road near the loch. The surgeon's photograph Hoax, 1934, the most iconic image of Nessie, a grainy black and white photo of a serpentine head and neck, was published in the Daily Mail in 1934. Touted as proof, the surgeon's photograph, taken by gynecologist Robert Wilson, became synonymous with the myth. Decades later, in 1994, it was exposed as a hoax. Wilson's accomplice, Christian Sperling, confessed to using a toy submarine and a carved wooden head. Despite the fraud, the photo remains a cultural touchstone. The 1960s, 1980s. Science steps in the 1960s. The Loch Ness Investigation Bureau launched the first organized search using sonar and cameras. In 1975, Boston's Academy of Applied Science captured a controversial underwater photo dubbed the Gargoyle Head, later debunked as a tree stump. In 1987, Operation Deep Scan deployed 24 boats with advanced sonar, detecting unexplained large objects but no definitive evidence. Biologists proposed Nessie could be a surviving plesiosaur, though the loch's cold, nutrient-poor waters made this unlikely. Hoaxes and hype. Nessie's fame bred hoaxes. In 1933, circus impresario Bertram Mills offered £20,000 to capture the monster, a publicity stunt. In 1972, the Loch Ness Muppet, a floating puppet, fooled tourists. Even NASA and the CIA were roped into conspiracy theories, with some claiming satellite imagery hid Nessie's existence. The 21st century, DNA and drones. Modern technology has demystified much of the legend. In 2003, the BBC's Searching for the Loch Ness Monster used 600 sonar beams and satellite tracking. No creatures were found. In 2018, a groundbreaking DNA study led by Professor Neil Gemmell analyzed 250 water samples, finding no traces of large unknown species. Results pointed to eels, some over 13 feet long, as likely culprits. Today, drones and thermal imaging continue to scan the loch, driven by tourism rather than science. Explanations and skepticism. Skeptics argue most sightings stem from natural phenomena, waves caused by the loch's steep sides, Seiche effect, floating logs, or gas bubbles. Misidentifications, seals, otters, or sturgeon, rarely seen in the loch. Psychology, pareidolia, seeing patterns in randomness, and the power of suggestion. Cultural legacy and tourism. Nessie is a global icon, generating £30 to £40 million annually for Scotland. The Loch's Visitor Centre, boat tours, and museums, like Nessieland, cater to enthusiasts. Pop culture embraces Nessie in films, The Waterhorse, TV shows, Doctor Who, and even as a cryptid emoji, sauropod. Despite scientific debunking, the legend endures as a symbol of mystery and humanity's love for the unexplained. As researcher Adrian Shine quipped, "Loch Ness is the world's largest Rorschach test. What you see says more about you than the loch."